Welcome back to the newest episode of TigerBytes, the podcast where we feature cutting edge, innovative practices from all across Auburn's campus. Today, we're here with Craig Kaplowitz. He's the director of the Exploration Center. What's the Exploration Center all about?
So the Exploration Center is a program that started about 10 years ago now. A very forward-thinking provost, or official in the provost's office, realized that we were spending a lot of time working with students who were changing their major, whether they were struggling in their major, just didn't like it, but they were partway down their path through Auburn and running into trouble. Delayed graduation, not having the right credits, not having the right core classes or prerequisites. And decided to back that up and work with students right when they get to campus, when they have the most flexibility of schedule, to help them become confident and get a little momentum into the major that's best for them. So we work with a number of kinds of students, but our bread and butter is new incoming freshmen who want some help figuring out the right major. And we help them through the course of the semester in a primarily face-to-face course for the freshmen. To become confident in a degree-granting major, and then also provide the academic advising that will keep them flexible for whatever major they eventually choose.
So you've led the conversion of, I guess it's Exploration 1010?
Yeah.
To an online format. What is the one element of the face-to-face experience that was most difficult to replicate digitally?
Yeah, one of the things that I spent a lot of my time thinking about in prep for this was the rhythm. The rhythm of a semester, the rhythm of a week, the time that's spent. I had done a little bit of online teaching, not much, and had been 50 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or 75 minutes on Tuesday and Thursday. And even the rhythm to the semester, there were certain break points. There's a spring break or a fall break. And you could organize your time in particular ways and do things in a class and set things up and have students spend some time in preparation for the next class. Thinking about that in an online environment where there are no built-in parameters other than beginning and ending was something that I had to spend a lot of time doing. And I think partly too because I'm a big proponent of transparency and pulling back the curtain and making sure students understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and why we're doing it now, that not having that skeleton of the structure of the course that I was used to made me think a lot about how to break it up, how to make it manageable, how to make the parts of the semester seem logical and flow into one another.
So do you give them weekly assignments or?
So yeah, and it's fairly typical for the online classes is to have a week. Things are due by the end of the week. And some people go to the micro level of giving them assignments by days, thinking in terms of a week and then translating the things that we do in class to how much time that should take outside of class, right, in an online environment. Because I think there's a real temptation, I know I felt it, I know others do too, to just pile stuff on. Because you don't have the parameter of the 50-minute class, you could just keep adding stuff. And it's all great stuff, but it's not manageable and it's overwhelming. So really keeping that in mind, and this is where the instructional designers are I'll probably say that a lot, but where the instructional designers are so imperative, so helpful, is figuring out how can we do that in a way that's a reasonable amount of time that's going to achieve the same purpose, but not the same way that you do it in a face-to-face class. So that took a lot of time.
So online learning can sometimes feel isolating, but for a student who is unsure of his or her path, does the digital format provide a safer, low-stakes environment for self-reflection as opposed to a crowded lecture hall?
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to that. And especially at the beginning of the semester, we follow in our exploration class, we follow a fairly standard exploration cycle. We've adapted some career exploration cycles to what we do. And one of the very first stages is knowing where you are starting and understanding yourself and what you're good at and asking a lot of those questions. And that can be a vulnerable thing. And can be especially vulnerable at the very beginning of the semester for for our students who are freshmen, first semester college students. That can be daunting. So we do actually work in the face-to-face class to try and break that down. We keep our sections very small, 20 to 25. Within that, we have working groups at tables, so students are with 4 or 5 other students. But we do even find there that those first few weeks, students are doing that self-exploration and They are a little more reluctant to do a lot of deep sharing. And so that's been something I do think that the students that we created this course for initially are high school students who are taking this as dual enrollment, with students all over the state who they don't know and aren't going to ever know, that's especially helpful for them.
What do you think differentiates a truly online curriculum from a traditional curriculum that's simply been uploaded to a website, Canvas?
Right. Yeah, the great early online texts that were PDFs, of the regular, the textbook. Yeah, I think that it's an online curriculum, just like any curriculum, actually, if it's a good curriculum, is going to achieve the desired outcomes for student learning, and achieve them in a way that is most effective for the medium that it's being delivered in. And so I'm a big proponent of backward course design, which is good because if you're working with Auburn instructional designers, that's where you're going to go.
They kind of stress those learning objectives, don't they?
Well, and this was something that I had gotten into before I got to Auburn. If what we're talking about is I want to know if my students are actually learning the thing that I'm hoping they're learning, then I'm all in, right?
Absolutely.
And so if we flip it around that way and say, okay, what's the desired outcome? What is it that we want students to get from this? What can they do to show us the extent to which they're able to do this? Those are pretty standard. And then we get into, okay, so how do we get them there? How do we teach them? What do they have to be exposed to? How can we lead them to a place and have them practice things so that they can then master it to where they can show us that they can do it? And that's the point at which it's going to be very different in a face-to-face context versus an online context.
So for the Auburn First program that you're involved with, how do you design online curriculum that bridges the gap between the high school mindset and the college mindset, which presumably college is more rigorous than high school?
Right, and it's a different rhythm. It's a very different rhythm, and there's a lot more autonomy.
Less hand-holding, for sure.
Yeah. And we find that with our course because we almost exclusively teach first semester college students. They still have that high school mindset. So some of it is being as explicit as possible about expectations. But I think the most helpful piece for that is modeling. Is giving students examples. And it's tricky because sometimes you give students an example of something and then you get assignments that all sound exactly like the example. And so you have to be careful. But to be able to provide some models for what a thorough response looks like, that's where I think we found pretty consistently the difference is that the students coming out of high school are never thorough enough for college level work. Models, we do wandering maps where we just brainstorm and get stuff out on paper, and then we start making connections and drawing lines and using color to represent different things. And the first go through, they're very simplistic, the equivalent of a stick figure. But we show them some examples from previous semesters or ones that our student workers have done, and I think showing them the expectations is something that really does level up. I do think that if you put the cookies on a higher shelf, students can go get them. I just think we need to do that.
I like that metaphor. Of course, the last couple of years, AI has become very prevalent. What kind of policy do you take with regard to the student assignments and the use of AI?
Yeah, so on the one hand, certain kinds of assessments, we try and AI proof them, which is tricky, but we do. Asking certain kinds of complex questions that...
Give an example from your personal life.
That's
a hard one.
Right. Or doing very specific things on very specific websites that we practice with and realize. So that's a different thing. We want students to be responsible with it. So we've been incorporating pieces of AI and AI examples and showing students, having students use AI to find things and respond to things and answer things, and then interrogating the answer. What's wrong with this? How is this not right? What did it get right and what did it get wrong? To the extent that AI can be an exceptional tool to help explore. But using it responsibly and knowing what it can and can't do. So we're in the midst of this still, but building in some modules into our work that helps students. And so I think AI responsibility is something that we want to educate them in and not just protect against.
How do you define success for a student who hasn't chosen a major yet? Is it a high grade? Is it a specific type of interaction? Is it epiphanies that they have?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. One is we have very long term, like it won't be for
Yeah.
individual students, but we want to make sure that our students are graduating on time, that they're not delayed by being exploratory. We work really hard at that.
Yeah.
So success is graduating on time, having a plan, making a decision, and being efficient with it. It's staying at Auburn because undecided students are vulnerable to being frustrated that they're not making progress or don't
Right.
know what they want to do. So those are checks on us. For the students themselves, it really is focused around those outcomes. We want to know if students are able to do certain things. And we do see it as learning skills that will help them anytime they're exploring. You know, we talk to them at Camp War Eagle about how the things they're doing in their class to help them find a major are going to be things that they can then do in a few years to help them find the right internship or the right job or the right, the right postdoc or the right graduate school, that this is a process. And so we've got things like being able to use research tools that we show them, that we introduce them to. We want to be able to use those effectively. We want them to be able to use a decision-making process, whatever it is. So we're focused on the outcomes, and we also have a confidence piece. We want students to be confident and feel like they've got a sense of momentum. And so success for a student, meaning success for us in working with a student, is that they feel optimistic about going forward when they leave our program.
Excellent. So online learning, the technology has just gone bananas the last 5 to 10 years. What's something that's a standard practice now that 5 years ago would have seemed near impossible to actually pull off?
Yeah, cue the instructional designers again.
Yeah, let's
because
brag
most of
on
these
them.
things I didn't know existed even now. But one of the tricks was for me anyway was how to translate the little kind of informal things that I do in class into the online environment. So little check-ins, right?
Yeah.
I'll stop at a certain point and we'll just crowdsource among the students in the class. What did we just talk about? What was most helpful? What's something that, and they'll popcorn it and they'll come up. And so students who weren't tracking as well can learn from other ideas or, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And those kinds of moments. How do you do that in an online environment? And the tools there are just phenomenal. I think things everything from as simple as just flashcards, where students can pick things, flip it around, read it, get an idea, try a different one, different kinds of matching. It's really smooth, where they can just try out different ideas. And if it doesn't work, they can try it again, right? We know good learning theories that if you do something wrong, it's okay as long as it's corrected right away. So you can do that with the technology now instead of having to wait for something to be graded. But then I also think my favorite now are the Powtoons, these little cartoons where we can write scripts. And you can even get to the point of having students choose their own adventure and see what would happen if they chose this path, what would happen if they decided to go that direction or answer questions in different ways. So I think those technology pieces of having the individual student be able to experience the equivalent of kind of crowdsourcing is something that 5 years ago I never would have imagined.
So the online models that you're building for undergraduates, do you think that's something that could be useful to alumni who want to pivot their careers? It seems to me like that would be a natural fit.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Your timing is really good. One of the goals that we're working on at the moment is taking our experience with our class and taking our experience of having kind of translated that into an online environment for a different audience, is to build out modules that can be mixed and matched and used for different discrete student groups or audiences, one of which is alumni.
So would these be like digital badges?
They could be digital badges. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be different modules where you would complete different aspects that were particular to what you were interested in, and to do them bite-sized so that you can pick the thing you want. I mean, some of it's as simple as, and working with our career strategy office and partners around campus, what does a resume look like in this field? What does a cover letter look like in this field? How are those things different? Having online modules where students can work through that at whatever time and whatever location they're on. But then for us, the full exploration cycle, where people who are looking to pivot in a career or, students who are transferring in and need some help figuring out what do 2 years years look like instead of 4 years? How do I quickly do that? Who's responsible? Or even students that maybe are going on suspension and need some help finding a job, thinking about, am I in the right place? Am I, do I want to do a little exploring or maybe consider what options might be? There are a number of different groups, including alums, that we think having these online asynchronous materials, it helps embed exploration, both major and career exploration, into the student experience in a way that it's not just retail. They don't just have to come to us.
Right.
There are ways that they can get started, and then we're here for that next level. And so it's kind of like flipping the classroom a little bit. Yeah. A little bit. But yeah, alumni are definitely part of that constituency.
Awesome. So if a student only remembers one takeaway from your courses, what would you hope that one takeaway would be? Confidence?
Yeah, I think confidence. And there's I kind of think of it in a couple different ways, but one is that you choose a major and you've done all the work and you've gone through the whole process and you've done the due diligence and you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 majors and you still just can't decide. They're probably all great options. That the fear of perfection sometimes really challenges students. And the other thing is related to that, and it's that there are some careers where you have to major in a specific thing. Not that many, but there are some. But just because you major in a particular thing doesn't mean there's only one thing that you can do on the other end. And so if you find your way partway through a major and you start wondering if it's the right thing and you've done all the due diligence, it's a good fit for you, start thinking about how you can apply that in different areas instead of jumping into something else that you really are learning, that your education is the primary thing.
So how about some fun Auburn questions?
All right, let's do it.
If you're celebrating, what is your go-to Auburn treat or dessert?
So as a family, we will find ourselves celebrating at Lucy's.
Okay.
And whatever we get, we will finish with the dessert sampler.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get a little bit of everything. If it's just my wife and I, we'll probably go to the depot.
Yeah, that dessert sampler is darn good.
That dessert sampler is all right.
And we're not endorsed by Lucy's or anything. We're giving them a shout out. Do you have a favorite hidden gem location on campus that more people need to know about?
Okay, so I'm going to shout out our own space because we are in the basement of Mary Martin Hall, which nobody would think would be attractive, but I will give them credit. They designed this 10 years ago before I ever got here, designed it specifically for our advising office, and it is wonderful, comfy, cozy space. Some of our students will hang out in between classes. They'll study, they'll gather, work on puzzles. So we do have a good space. That's a little self-serving. So I'll also shout out the Big EO Center, and the ACLC is wonderful for a little break. If you need a break, they've got some nice fixins over there.
Massage
chairs, zero gravity chairs. It's a good time.
Aside from Rolling Toomer's Corner, which Auburn tradition do you think most represents the Auburn family spirit?
I'm going to go with Heyday on this one. And I think the greatest thing about Heyday, which is a day where everybody walks around and says hey to each other every time you meet someone, that it's not that different from every other day at Auburn.
Yeah.
Which makes it embody the Auburn spirit in a particular way, because that is very much the Auburn spirit, is that we are going to sort of be in community.
Growing up in the Northeast, the idea that somebody would randomly say hi to you, that's
walking down the street, I have to check myself when I go back and forth.
What is the one sound, whether it's a song, a cheer, or a campus noise, that makes you feel like you're officially home at Auburn?
When I take my dog over to the Red Barn to swim in the pond, it has to be the cars that drive over the Donahue, the road that the engineering professor had a student project carve into the road so that as they drive over it, it plays the fight song. That's a very distinct sound to me.
So I drove over that today, and I actually drive out of my way so I can drive over it.
I do wonder how many near accidents they have over there by people trying to get on that thing. But
if you had to describe what War Eagle means to someone who knows nothing about Auburn, how would you explain it?
War Eagle means I see you, and there's something bigger than you and me that connects us.
I like it. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard War Eagle in airports and, random cities and stuff. If you have an Auburn hat or an Auburn shirt.
On the way up Angels Landing in in Zion National Park.
Wow.
My son and I got a War Eagle. He was wearing his hat.
Outstanding.
It's great.
Well, Craig, thanks for being here. This has been a fun discussion. It's
been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
I'm a big fan of history, so it's nice to talk to somebody who's an expert on the topic.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.